Okay, welcome back to my summertime mob movie marathon with Donnie Brasco, starring Johnny Depp and Al Pacino. This is based on the real life story of Joe Pistone, who was an FBI agent who infiltrated the mob. It started out with the FBI trying to crack these truck robberies, and when his superiors found out he can get in with the mob, they changed the focus, and it went from what was supposed to be a 6 month undercover operation to a 6 month a 6 year deep cover operation. This FBI agent spent 6 years in the mob, and he led to 200, like something like 200 indictments and 100 convictions. This guy even was the how the FBI learned that the five families work together, that they're not strictly rival organizations. So he uncovered a lot of dirt about the mob. Al Pacino plays Lefty Guns, and this is actually a very interesting role. Normally, we're used to him being the man in charge in these type of roles. This time, he's a glorified middleman. He's like a lower middleman in the mob. He's never even going to be a capo, but he's still good enough at what he does, and he's the one that takes Donnie Brasco under his wing and starts schooling him in the ways of the mob. And this film, from what I've seen, is fairly accurate. In fact, one of the things when I was doing my research I thought was going to be at least embellished was when Lefty Guns was given the lion, because he gets called for. And this is a great scene because it bookends a scene later, and he's explaining what it could mean to get called for. And Donnie's like, so it's Sonny Black that called you. He's your friend. And he's like, you don't get it. In our life, when you get called for, you walk in a room and don't come out, and it's your best friend that pulls the trigger. Do you know how many times I've been on the other end of that gun? And he goes there thinking he's going to get shot. The boss was just killed. And it turns out they were able to piece together Lefty was involved with it, and he got bumped up. And not Lefty, Sonny Black was behind it, and he gets bumped up and becomes a capo, and he gives Lefty a lion. Now, the lion was younger when it was actually given to him, and Lefty always did complain it scratched the furnishing in his car, but you do see some funny scenes with these mobsters walking a full-grown lion. But amazingly enough, they left the best part in what really happened out. In the movie, he lost the lion when this Florida nightclub got raided. In real life, it's much more interesting and hilarious, in my opinion. The lion got to where Lefty couldn't take care of it anymore. It was just, of course, it's a full-grown lion, it's going to be too big. So they tied it to a tree in the park and paid some people a couple $100 to call the cops. Naturally, the police were, a tad bit skeptical. They thought it was a prank. So after the process of doing this over a couple nights, they finally sent two very skeptical officers to the park who undoubtedly had the shock of their career when there was indeed a lion chained to a tree in the park. Like, what the real thing is much more interesting. Doing my research, I really thought this was at least heavily exaggerated for the movie, but no, it was actually kind of pulled back. And, like, the real meat and potatoes of the movie is the relationship between Donnie Brasco and Lefty Guns and their friendship. There's another funny scene where, like, it's kind of a running joke. They're in the car. The first time they're together, Lefty's smoking up a bit. Donnie cracks the window and he's like, close that window. I'm going to catch a draft. And then when they're in Florida, Lefty decides to fix him. He turns the air conditioner all. I mean, not Lefty. Donnie decides to fix Lefty. He turns the air conditioner all the way up, takes the knobs, loses them. And Lefty's like, I'm going to catch my death here. No, don't you call a maintenance man. It could be an agent. They'll bug it. And they get into a big fight, and Donnie's like, forget this, I'm getting my own room. And Lefty's yelling at him outside of the room, and he locks himself out of his hotel room. That was another funny scene, but on one thing they did do differently, in the movie, it's clear that Donnie's family is still in New York, where in real life, the FBI had them in the other side of the country for their own safety. So this guy spent like 6 years also apart from his family. And he goes in deeper and deeper. Also add that Sonny Black is played by Michael Madison, and he does a great role. This guy should have done more mobsters because he's good at it. The whole Florida thing is they're trying to establish connections there because I think it was Sonny Black that put it. Here you have 15 guys chasing over after the same dime. There, we can have the presence and make all the money, so they have a nightclub that ultimately gets raided, and they spend time in lockup. And this ultimately leads to there being the brink of a mob war. Sonny Black gets called for, and like most good mob movies do, they have at least that one really violent scene that gets under your skin. In this case, they went to the house Sonny was getting called for, and they're waiting for the bosses of the family to get there so they can kill them themselves. And the shootout is graphic, and then they actually hack them to bits along with one of the guys under Sonny because they believe he was a rat and they know he was dealing drugs. In that does get under your skin, but the scene after it is done really well between Johnny Depp and Al Pacino, because you could see the way Al Pacino's playing it. Even though Lefty was a hitman for the mob and he killed like 26 men, you can tell that this was easily the most messed up and disturbing thing he's ever seen or done in the mob. And there's a great back and forth where Lefty's like, you can't say this guy's name, he was a rat, we're not allowed to speak of him anymore. And we're getting to another difference in the movie. They pulled Donnie out of deep cover because of the mob war, when in real life, they pulled Donnie out because he was about to get made. And the FBI determined that would cross the line from investigating criminals to becoming criminals. And in the movie, I forget how it happened in real life, but they busted the two of them when they were about to make a hit, and they rush Donnie Jopistone off, and Lefty hadn't figured out yet. He's like, don't tell him nothing, Donnie, don't crack. And it leads to a scene in this scene, and I'll explain how it happened in real life, but Lefty gets called for, he kisses his wife, takes off all his jewelry, leaves all his personal effects on him in a drawer, and he also tells his wife, hey, tell Donnie if it had to be anyone, I'm glad it's him. And he walks out the door, screen fades to black, you hear a gunshot. Even though this isn't what happened in real life totally, I like the way it did it because it's a great call to the scene where he explained, in this line of life, when you get called for, you walk into a room and you don't come back. Now, in real life, they were going to kill Lefty. The FBI found out, intercepted him on the way to the hit. He still refused to cooperate with the FBI, but one interesting thing, he never had anything against Joe Pistone. He felt like, you know what, he didn't plant any evidence, he investigated us, he did it the right way, so it's our fault for not realizing what he was, and unbelievably enough, Lefty really didn't have much ill will towards Joe Pistone. And one thing the movie does kind of touch on when we see his interactions with his Joe Pistone's interactions with his wife, he's becoming increasingly less Joe Pistone and more Donnie Brasco. Now, he had to live this role every day of his life, so it's no surprise that Joe Pistone was never fully able to shut his character of Donnie Brasco off. He had that. To this day, he still can't fully shut Donnie off, but this is a great historic mob movie that is like mostly accurate and just has a great cast that acts together. This is one of my favorite mob movies, so it's A+ material. And be on the lookout for the next movie where I'm going to review Casino, followed by Goodfellas, Gotti, and I'm going to conclude it with Godfather 3. So we're winding down. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Over and out.